What's up YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and today we'll be completing a $175 coin roll hunt. Now, as you can see in front of you, this is basically 10 rolls, mainly of customer wrap rolls, of each denomination from penny all the way up to the quarter. Now, we picked up all this change from the same Wells Fargo branch not too far from where I live. I'm excited to get into these. I love these mixed coin roll hunts because it gives us a lot of opportunity to switch gears and look for different varieties, errors, and other numismatically relevant coins. Of course, we'll also be keeping our eye out for copper in our pennies, silver in our nickels, our dimes, and our quarters, and we will be using the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book today as our main hunt list. So if you like coin roll hunts, stick around. This one, I'm sure, should be a lot of fun. So we're going to go ahead and get into these rolls in the following order. We're actually going to do the dimes first because there's the least number of things that we'll be looking for in our dimes. We're then going to move on to the quarters next, which is a little different than I normally do my hunts. We'll then move on to our nickels and finish with our pennies because the pennies take the longest to find and there's way more to look for, so I want to make sure I take my time. And just to give you an idea of what I mean by that, in the Strike It Rich book, you can see they've color-coded or sort of mapped out the sections of the book. And this is the penny section of the book. Then we move on to the nickels, the dimes, the quarters, the halves, and the dollars. So there's lots to look for in the quarters, a little bit more to look for in the nickels, and tons to look for in the pennies. And if you don't have this book, it is a fantastic resource for you to use in all of your coin roll hunts from pennies all the way up to Eisenhower and Susan B. Anthony dollars. It has great pictures. It has values that are relatively accurate to today's like eBay sale values. So I do recommend this book. I do have a link in the description down below this video for all the things that I show off on my channel. And I'd really appreciate it. One of the easiest ways to support my channel is to click on that Amazon store link that's down in the description, because anything you put in your cart after clicking on that link, I will earn a very, very small commission on. Sometimes it's 1% to 2%. For some things it can be higher, like 4 to 5 to 6%, but every little bit helps. So for example, when you buy this book, I make something like 38 cents or something. It's a very, very small amount of money, but like I said, every little bit helps. So even if you're buying water filters or new pens and pencils for the house, if you click on my link, I actually make a small commission. So consider doing that. I am going to go ahead and move on to the dimes, and I'm going to open every one of these on camera, and we may jump into a little bit of fast forward because I'm mainly silver hunting when we look at dimes, because like I said, there's just not a whole lot to look for. I will go through each of these like this, just edge hunting, and then I'll sweep back through them looking for things like proofs or anything shiny that might jump out at us. One of the coolest things you can find in dimes, if you are going to look for them, is the 1996 West Point minted dime. And it's like any other dime, but instead of having a P or a D on it, it will have a W, like our 2019 and 2020 West Point minted quarters. I have never found one in the wild. I know there are people that have, but I would love to find one day. And that's why usually when I do dimes, I will search through a handful of rolls. It's just they're so tiny and they hurt my eyes, so I don't look at too many of them. I mainly silver hunt. Something else you should know if you are doing this for the silver hunting, dimes are probably the worst thing that you can invest your time in. While you can go through them really, really quickly and they're easy to get a hold of, understand that a silver dime is only worth about $2 in silver, whereas a 90% silver half dollar can be worth $10, $12, $15, depending on how old it is. Is it a Walker, a Benji, what have you. 40% silver half these days is worth about $4 to $5. So if you're just silver hunting, your half dollars are the better way to go. All right, well, enough talking from me. I'm going to go ahead and get these open, and we'll jump into some fast forward, and we'll slow down if we find something. Okay, well, as you can see, we didn't find any silver in those 10 rolls of dimes. I'm going to go ahead and go through some of these off camera, and I'll be sure to bring you in if I come across anything. But if it's like my typical dime hunts, I really don't see anything worth hanging on to. And the next time you see me, we'll probably be jumping in to these quarters. Before we get into the quarters, I did want to come in and just show you the couple of dimes I found. Not hugely interesting, but in the coin community, a lot of people are asking when we're starting to see the 2024 coinage make its way around. And I've been finding a lot of 2024 pennies of late. I haven't seen any nickels or quarter. No, that's not true. I've seen some quarters as well. But this is my first Philly 2024 dime, and I say first. It's the first hunt where I've found some. I probably came across 8 or 10 of these as I went back through them. But that is a 2024 Philly, so we are starting to see those here in the metro Atlanta area. And I did come across a 2009 Denver, as well as a 2009 Philly. And for those of you that don't know, during the recession, they actually, of 2008, 2009, they slowed the mintage of a lot of coinage down during that time period. And so 2009 is a tougher year to find, especially on, I want to say, quarters, definitely our dimes. I'm trying to think. There's a handful of them that the mintage is a little bit lower. But I did pull out my red book just to show you the difference here. 2009 Philly in Denver. The Denver only had 49,500,000 made. 2009 Philly, 96,500,000, right? But when you look at all the other years, they're in the 400 to 600 million range. 2007, there was over 1 billion of each of them made. 2006, over 1 billion of them made. So you can see that there's lots and lots of these dimes made, but 2009 was a very low mintage year. So we're going to go ahead and jump into these first couple of rolls of quarters now. If you've never hunted quarters before, the two really important things that you need to have on your list are the 2019 and 2020 West Point minted quarters, as well as our silver quarters, which would be 1964 and earlier. Those would all be 90% and worth a couple, $4 or $5 a piece, if I recall. I'll put the actual melt value on the screen here just to make sure I'm not wrong. I'm trying to think. The other kind of cool things you always want to keep your eye out for would be your San Francisco business strikes and proofs as well. Now, there are a ton of little die chip and other type of mint errors and varieties and quarters that you should look for. So again, that Strike at Richbrook will be your best friend. And I also have a more abbreviated version of what I look for in a document in the description down below this video. So if you're looking for a shorter hunt list, that might be something that's interesting. I'm trying to think. Another really valuable one that you can keep an eye out for is this 2021 Philadelphia crossing the Delaware quarter. There is still a huge die chip out there on George Washington's head. They call that the full crown error. And at the height of when that thing was first being found, they were worth, $50, $60, $70, $80 a piece. I think they've come down since then, but always very cool to find those. I have personally never found a full crown. I have found a half crown before, and I did have one of my viewers actually mail me a full crown that they had found because they'd found a whole bunch of them. So anyway, I'm going to go back through these, see what I can find. As we find those mint errors, those W's, if we find any of it, quite frankly, I'll bring you in. We'll talk all about it, and we'll also talk a little bit about value on eBay if we find anything worth more than $1 or $2. So we're getting through those first 3 rolls, and we've got our first little die chip error. As you can see, it's right here on the corner of George's mouth. It's called the Drooling George. Now, when the 2022 quarters first came out, you could find this error on just about every 2022 that I came across anyway. I used to find a bunch of these in every box, and since it's become kind of popular to find and pull from circulation, they're getting harder and harder to find. That said, they're not worth a whole lot of money. I'll check eBay and throw it up on the screen if it's worth, basically to show you what it's going for these days, if they're still even selling. But last I checked, maybe $1 or $2 at most. But you can see that great big die chip right there in the corner of his mouth. Cleaning up roll 3 from the beginning of these quarters, we've come across our next little die chip error. It is on the 2008 Philly, and we call this one the extra cactus error. Again, only worth a couple of bucks at most, but you can identify it by this extra little piece of metal or this little die chip over the JFM engraver's initials. You can see the J and the F are partially covered. On a clean one, this line right here is all that you see. So this extra piece of metal is not supposed to be there. They're worth a little bit more if you can find one that also has the die chip right here above the 2. This one doesn't have it, but we'll put this on the board as a find. Again, just minor mint error. So we're getting through rolls 5, 6, and 7, and it looks like I've kind of done half of 2 different rolls, so apologies for that. But I did come across a Bullion 2009 Justice for All, District of Columbia. It's a Philadelphia. Now, this one is probably the nicest one I've ever found, but there's a really valuable double die reverse on this Duke Ellington that I don't actually have on this coin. I'm just pulling it aside because it is so nice, and I will use it to upgrade my books because I just can't imagine the one that I have is this nice. So we'll put this up here on the board, and there's a couple other things we'll cover at the end of the video that I've been pulling, but nothing of any real value, but we'll talk about it at the end. But looking in the Strike It Rich book, I just did want to point out what some of these really valuable double die reverses are, and here you can see very, very strong doubling in the E, L, and L. So if you have a coin like that in circulated condition, it could be worth $500 to $750. Here's another double die reverse where we've got a little bit of doubling down in the keys. Much less at 10 to 20 for circulated, maybe upwards of 30 to 40 in an uncirculated state. So this Duke Ellington, I always like to take special attention to look at. It is a 2009, so I think the mintage was also just a little bit less. And these are just hard to find in really, really good condition, as are the 2010, 11, and 12, and that's a couple of the things that I have up here, which, again, we'll cover at the end of the video. Bringing in here on roll number 7, we're just a handful of coins in, and we've got a book filler. I know in this hunt, I haven't really talked about my albums too much, but I do have 2 sets of quarter albums that I've been trying to fill out, and this actually came up obverse facing, so the other side of the coin first, so I know it's going to be a book filler. But this is the Jovita, I forget what her last name is. It's the Jovita Idar, that's what it is. 2023 Denver. So I have found lots and lots of Phillies, but not any Denver. So I'm going to need this for at least one of my 2 sets of books, if not both. So we're going to put this one aside. And in the last roll, I did come across a really nice 2007 Montana that I also pulled just because it's kind of blinging, and it might be a book upgrade. So we're going to go ahead and keep on hunting. Okay, well, bringing you back here in roll number 7, it's just the roll that's going to keep on giving. We've got another die chip error, this time on the 2023 Philly quarter. Now, again, new coin roll hunters understand the Philly mint has way more errors than the Denver, so if you're kind of up in the Northwest and you're getting nothing but Denvers, you're going to have a real hard time finding some of these things. But on this Bessie Coleman, there is a bunch of different varieties of this, but this one is the die chip up here on the top plane or top wing of the biplane. It can present itself over here. I have seen it present itself down here on the bottom wing of the biplane. I've seen it kind of all over the place on this plane, but this is kind of one of the more common areas, and this is a nice sized die chip. I don't think this coin is worth more than, again, $1 or $2, but still kind of a neat find. And I'm bringing you down here because there's another error that I always look for, and it's an NQ's error down here on the E and the C. And the really good ones, you actually get a doubled E sitting way out here and a doubled C sitting way down here. Now, this coin doesn't happen to have it, but it is something that I am always looking for. So another die chip find on the hunt. Well, we've reached the end of the quarter hunt, and honestly, for just 10 rolls, it did not turn out to be too bad of a hunt. We've actually pulled, I don't know, about half a roll, maybe a little less than a half a roll of quarters that any coin roll hunter would be happy to hang on to. Let me go through them really quickly with you. I've brought you in for a great many of them during the hunt, but we have the Bessie Coleman with the die chip error up there on the top of the biplane, and it's actually a quarter in pretty darn good condition. Still lots of mint luster. Looks really, really nice. We did end up with 2 of the 2008 extra cactus die chip errors. Now, the second one I didn't bring you in for because we'd already talked about it, and it wasn't as pretty as the first one. It's a little bit more damaged and worn, but we did end up with 2 of those. And, of course, we have our Drooling George. And this coin has a little bit of chatter on it, a couple of circulation marks, but still not a bad looking coin in general. And that was the, this is the Dr. Sally Ride 2022 Philly. So three little errors, not bad. I did end up pulling a 2010, a couple of 2011s, and a 2012. One of them was a Denver. The rest were all Phillies. Now, all four of these are actually going to be an upgrade to my book, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Moving up here, we did end up with 6 bicentennial quarters, and I tend to hang on to the nicer ones and make rolls. The uglier ones I have been sending back lately. The main reason I pull them aside, though, is the Denver does have a rather valuable double die obverse on it that I always look for, and I have never found it. It is on my bucket list. I also have 2 other coins that are going to be upgrades for my various albums. This 2009 District of Columbia actually looks better than the ones that I have in my book. We did check it for that DDR that is actually quite valuable as well. And unfortunately, we don't have it. But this is a beautiful quarter. And the Jovita Edar, this is the Denver, and we need that for our women's quarter book. So let me go ahead and get the camera set up. I'll show you guys the state of these 3 albums that I'm talking about, and we'll get those plugged in. But all in all, not a bad little quarter hunt for 10 rolls. So rather than struggle to get these coins pushed in while we go through it, I'll just show you the 3 albums we're upgrading here. This is the 2022 and beyond American Women Quarters, American Women Quarters book. There we go, I got it out. As you can see, we have all of the coins except for the Jovita Edar Denver. We're missing the Maria Tall Chief Denver. And if you watch my last hunt, we did start finding the Patsy Takamoto coin in the Philly. We're missing the Denver. I do have 2 sets of these, so the Jovita Edar, I have one that's going to fill that hole right there. And these books, for whatever reason, the holes are super tight and you really struggle to get them in, and I don't want to waste your time. The Warman State Quarters Deluxe book, I do have links to most of these books in the description down below. But again, if you use my Amazon store link, anything you buy, I get a small commission on. You can go find this by doing a quick search. But this is a fantastic book. I like it because it's a single book, and it has all of the years from 2000, I believe. And you won't be able to see all this on camera, but it goes from 99 to 2009. And what I like about it is it has Philly and Denver for each year. And we did have that one 2009 District of Columbia, and I'll just show you over here. This book is completely filled in. We're not missing anything. However, in both versions of this album, this coin's a little chewed up. They're hard to find in good condition, so it is going to be a minor upgrade, and we'll replace that coin with that one right there, and it does look quite a bit nicer. And last but not least, another book that I highly recommend. This is the National Park Quarter album. I forget who makes this one. Anyway, you can tell if you look for it online, you can tell from the picture. It's another great album because this half of the album is all Denver. This half of the album is all Philly. And again, this book, I've got 2 of them. They're completely filled. And every single coin in this book, they're minor upgrades, but they are definitely upgrades. Like the, where did it go? I think it's this Alaska that I have an upgrade for. This one has some dings and marks and stuff in the edge, and the new one doesn't. So we'll be punching those down off camera. But really love these books, and if you're thinking about starting a quarter collection, I can't recommend them enough. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get on to the nickels. Okay, so like our last denominations, I'm going to go ahead and get a couple, 2 or 3 of these open. I'm going to go ahead and do the bank wrapped ones first. And again, there's tons to look for in nickels, lots of DDOs and DDRs. And one of my favorite things to look for is our war nickels. That's just like a ground target, 2002. War nickels, which are 35% silver. Of course, we're always on the lookout for buffaloes. We're on the lookout for old V nickels. I didn't see anything jumping out as too old in there. I will go back through them, of course, and if we find anything from 38 to 59, we'll consider a find. And of course, anything older than that's going to be fantastic. So let's get this one open, see what we got. Just checking for some silver. That guy's a little off color. Let's see what we got. So So we do have a 46 right here. So there's a 1946, technically our first find. We just missed being silver by a year. It's just a 64. All right, we'll do one customer roll here on camera as well. See what we got. So nothing too off color there. Now when I say off color, what I mean is your silver nickels will have a slightly different kind of tone to them because they are 35%. So a lot of times, just looking at the edges, you can kind of pull them out and go, that's going to be something a little different. Really nice 1964. All right, well, nothing else too old in there. I'll go back through them. If we find anything early, like 38 to 59, we'll call you. We'll pull you back in. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on heading through these nickels. So we're about 3/4 of the way through roll number 7, and we came across second find of this little hunt, a 1940. Let's see if we got a San Francisco, Denver, or Philly. We have ourselves a 1940 Philly. That'll go nicely with our 1946. So same roll, just like 4 or 5 nickels from the end, and this one almost got by me because it was so ugly, but we've got ourselves a 1958 Denver, and this 58 Denver has a whole bunch of repunched mint marks and D over D errors and those kinds of things. So let's take a look at that mint mark together. And I think looking at D mint marks on nickels are really tough because they're usually so old and so damaged, it's really tough to tell if you have anything. I can't tell from here. I see a little bit of something in the middle, but I'm not sure that looks like any of the pictures that I have. So we're just going to call this a 1958 Denver. So we're getting into those last 3 rolls. This would be roll number 8 of 10, and we've come across a obverse facing 1949. Now, he does have a big scratch through him, and the 49S would be a semi-key date with a little over 9 million minted, which is actually really, really low. And there is a over mint mark, a D over S error, but we would only look for that if we had a D. So let's check it out together. Look at that. We got the S, and it looks like we might have a little lamination break on this guy, too. You can see the damage in the... I don't know what the right word is there. It's like the patina of the coin. I'm fairly sure that is a lamination error as well. So we got a semi-key date with a lamination error. Let's look at that under the scope just to kind of get an idea what that looks like. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep, that is a really cracked, damaged mint error right there. So that's a pretty cool find. I'm going to have to look on eBay. Granted, we do have some damage to the face, but I don't know what that would bring in. That might be an interesting coin to look up. If it's of any significant value, I'll put some comps up on the screen. Well, that wraps it up for our nickel hunt. And honestly, for 10 rolls, this was not a bad hunt either, especially considering we did come across a semi-key date nickel. There's a lot of people that may hunt box after box after box and never find one of these, and we found it in just 10 rolls. Now, I did check eBay for this specific coin with a lamination error and could not find one. I don't think that's a die break. I do think that's a lamination problem. Lamination error nickels were going for anywhere from like $5 all the way up to about 30 or 40, depending on the condition of the nickel and if the lamination problem was on both sides. The 49S, I couldn't find anything kind of with this much damage on it, but these were selling for a couple, $2, $3. If I can find some decent comps, I'll put them up. If not, trust me on it, or you can feel free to head on over to eBay and search for it yourself. As for the rest of our finds, we did find ourselves a 1940 Philly. We had a 46 Philly as well, and this is one of the potential Hennig nickels, which means it could be a fake nickel. I did all the standard looking on this coin. You'll see we've got a big gouge through the coin, but unfortunately, that is not what we're looking for. Typically, we're looking for a big hole in the R of E pluribus unum, and there is a die break down through the coin, and it usually weighs a little bit more. And this passed all the tests of being just a legitimate nickel. So Nothing special there, and of course we did have ourselves a 1958 Denver. So a couple of finds out of 10 rolls, not bad. The 49S is definitely a keeper. I do actually have tubes and tubes of all the 38s through 59s that I'm hanging on to. And I didn't bring you in for it, but I did have one misstuffed roll. We came away with a 1990 penny, so we made 5 cents on the roll, so I'll take that. With that said, let's get on to the pennies. And they're going to take me the longest to hunt, but we are going to hunt for all of our DDOs, DDRs, steel pennies, wheat pennies, Indian head pennies, and keep all of our copper. So let's see what we can find. Okay, so I'm going to open up at least one roll here on camera and go through it, but I did want to stop for anybody new to penny hunting. I do this with my bank wrapped rolls as well as my customer wrapped rolls to see if they're even worth opening. You do need a scale that goes all the way to the grams designation, down to the 1/10 of a gram. And if you weigh a roll of pennies, you can get an idea if there's a little copper in it, no copper in it, or a lot of copper in it, or potentially stuffed with a bunch of extra pennies. So a typical roll of pennies should weigh about 126 grams, give or take, 125.8 or 9, 126.1 or 2, somewhere in there, depending on the weight of the wrapper, how worn the pennies are, so on and so forth. So at 129.2, I don't know the number off the top of my head. In the search list document in the description down below, I actually have included a table that will tell you at 129.2 grams just about how many pennies are going to be in this roll. And I'll put it up on the screen as a guess, and we'll see how close it is. But I do like to weigh them to get a sense for if we have a lot of copper. Now at 132.9, we either have a lot of copper or we might have an extra penny or two, right? So this gets me excited to open the rolls, but if I get a bunch of customer wrapped rolls and I throw one after the other on there and they're all about 126 grams, I typically don't even open them. I'll throw them right back in the bin and take them back to the bank because it's probably going to be just a bunch of zinc. So let's go ahead. Actually, let's do that heavier roll, that 132. I think it was roll number 2, 132.9. Let's go ahead and get that open and see if we're loaded with copper or if it looks like maybe we just have a bunch of extra pennies. I'm going to go with loaded with copper. You can tell just from the color, when we look at the edge, everything that's super red likely is going to be zinc. It could be red, older copper coins, but typically not. It can be though. So everything I'm putting up here is definitely copper. Our copper starts at 1982. So there's a 1959 Denver. This is the last year before we go to the wheat penny, and there is a really big error to look for on your 1959s. If it has a wheat penny reverse on a 1959, you've got yourself a keeper. That's going to be worth some money. So there's a 72, and there are tons of errors on our older copper pennies, so I take a lot of time when looking at my copper. Coins like this that I can't get a date off of, hopefully that's still on camera. What I like to do is just throw it on the scale, and it's 2.5 grams, so I know it's going to be zinc. And that way I don't have to worry about figuring out what the year is. I can throw it in the zinc pile. That's a 75. I'm going the wrong way. A 70. Now I will go back through these for those errors and varieties, because there are errors and varieties even on zinc pennies. And there's some actually pretty valuable ones, like the 1988 transitional, which I have found before. I think it's the 98 or the 99 wide AM's got pretty good value behind it. But as you can see, my two piles are about equal right now. Now we've come across a 2009 commemorative. There were 4 commemorative reverses on the 2009. There was the early childhood, the formative years, the professional life, and the Capitol Dome. And obviously if I miss any copper, I'll make sure to move it to the next pile, or to the proper pile as I go through them. I'm just trying to do this quickly for you guys so you can get an idea of how much copper is in this roll at 132 plus grams. Is that an 84? That's an 84. 96. That just looks copper. That's an 84, but it reads very copper. That's a 63 or a 65, 99. We'll be sure to check that when we go back through for the wide AM. All right, there we go. Unless I missed anything, there's our copper or our zinc pile. Here's our copper pile. And I did get a couple of questions in the last week about why I separate and keep my copper. At the end of all of my penny videos, I always pull up on screen and show how much the copper is in these pennies, because today they're anywhere from 2 to 3 cents worth of copper in every penny. So let's see here. We got 5. Again, assuming I did it right. That's 10. We had 13 copper pennies in that 132 gram roll. So hopefully that matches what I showed you, or very close to it, before we open the roll. So with that, I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to hunt for those varieties. I'll get into some more rolls, and I'll bring you in as we find stuff. So we're getting through roll number 2. We're about 10 or 12 coins there from the end, and we've got our first wheat penny. It came up reverse facing, and it is an ugly one. Let's check it out together. We got ourselves a 1953S, it looks like, and that 5 looks a little suspicious. Let's check it out here under the scope. Yeah, it looks like we might have a little die chip. I would say die chip before damage, I guess. A little die chip there in the 5 of the 1953. Probably not a lot of value there, but something kind of interesting. And looking at my cheat sheet, I don't see that the 53S has any variety. So we'll just put it up here on the board as a first wheat penny find on these 10 rolls. So let's keep on hunting. Getting into roll number 4, and we've come across our first foreign of these little 10 rolls of pennies. We've got a Queen Elizabeth II on the front, and a really awful 2000 and something. Maybe that's a 5. I'm not going to scrape at that with my fingernail because it's kind of gross, but our first foreign penny on the hunt. So we're into roll number 5, and we've got our next foreign. This one's an older one, though, so like I think 98% copper here on the Canadian. We got ourselves a 1963. Much more brown, and I think it's a slightly, I forget which year the young head and the old head are. I think this is the young head. That's the old head. But pretty cool. We got an old one and a current one. So we're into roll number 9. We're, I don't know, quite a ways through it. And I've got a coin under the scope here for you. It's actually a 2005. We'll show you the date here in a second. And I'm only excited to bring in because I look at a lot of pennies for errors and die chips and all kinds of things, and I don't find many of them. Not a lot of value here. This isn't going to be something recognized by PCGS. It's just something that I don't see very much. And it is a little die chip on the back of the, I think it's the Lincoln Memorial there. Typically, I'm looking over here for like a DDR in the Lincoln statue and here in that center bay. And oftentimes there's also a DDR over here in this last bay. But this little die chip popped up, and I thought it was kind of interesting enough to show you guys. And there it is. It's a 2005 Bullion red 1 cent piece. So very same roll, roll number 9, just a few pennies later, we've come across a wheat penny. And honestly, for 9 rolls, this isn't so bad. 2 wheat pennies in. And for a lot of times, I only get 4 to 8 in a box. So let's check it out here. We got ourselves a 1952 Denver. I'll take it. So still roll number 9, just a penny or 2 later, and I did notice we had a brown copper penny poking out, but I didn't think it was going to be something this old, because I've been getting lots of 60s and 70s. But we've got ourselves, it looks like, a 1951 Denver wheat penny number 3 out of 10 rolls. So we have finished up our penny hunt. Let's go see what we found out of just 10 rolls of pennies. Well, first off, we found a ton of copper. And I am going to get all this on the scale and tell you how much it weighs and tell you what it's worth in copper. I've been getting the question a lot lately why I pull my copper pennies, and quite frankly, it's because they're worth more than 1 cent. Copper penny today is worth anywhere from about 2.2 to, I want to say, like 2.4, 2.6 cents. Something like that in pure copper weight. So, not pure copper weight, but based on the amount of copper that is in a penny, I should say. So, we'll get a weight, we'll get a copper value on those here in just a minute. But going through our finds, we did have a couple of Canadians. This one for sure is an old 98% Canadian penny, but I'm going to hang on to both of them. We did end up with 3 wheat pennies. We got ourselves a 1951, a 1952, and a 1953S. These other 2 are Denvers. None of those are going to be upgrades for my albums, but still love finding those wheat pennies. We did end up with a, what did I pull up here? This was our die chip 2005 with the little die chip down there on the pillar. I'll flip that up and keep that as a little minor error. We did get 3 of the 2009 commemorative Lincoln cents. 2 of the formative years, and 1 of the professional life. And this one may just be an upgrade for my album with fingerprints and all on it. This is an absolutely gorgeous penny, and we're going to look at the albums here, or at least the potential upgrades here in just a second. And I did pull a couple of blinging copper pennies that I usually keep separate and roll them separately from my standard copper. Now keep in mind, when I weigh this stuff up, I'm not going to include these couple of extra pennies, so the numbers I give you will be a little bit higher. I did pull a couple other really nice pennies along the way, or cents along the way, and I've already checked my albums for these. This 84 is going to be an upgrade, and this 91 is going to be an upgrade. So let me go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. Let's get a weight on this copper, and let's take a look at the couple of spots we're upgrading in our album. All right, well, here we go. I've gone ahead and put all the copper we found from this hunt into a solo cup, and I did tear my scale to what just the solo cup was, which was 11.6 grams. As you can see here, we have 317.8 grams of copper, not including, you know, the wheat pennies, the Canadian penny, and those couple of stunners that I put aside. So the number's actually a little higher than this. And at today's copper value, which is $4.11 per pound of copper, with 317.8 grams of pennies, copper pennies, this has a total value of $2.74, and I'll throw that up on screen. Like I said, it's probably a little bit higher than that if I were to throw in the little bit of wheat pennies and bling and copper that we have. I did check, as bad as this 1952 Denver looks, it's actually a slight upgrade for my album. So let's take a look at those two that we are going to upgrade here. So first off, we have the 41 to 74 book, which is mainly full. But believe it or not, this, where did it go? It's this 52 Denver. It's got red like ink and muck all over it. So we're going to take that out and slot this guy in. Again, not a huge upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless. You can tell once I got to 58, I hit a little collection dump because everything else is kind of a stunner all the way up through 74S. But this album's coming along. Unfortunately, I haven't been filling it as quickly as I thought I would. And then our 75 to 2013, we had 2 upgrades here. And again, this book is complete, but I do have a couple of uglies in here, like 91D, 90D, 77D. And I just need to put those on a sheet of paper because I'm sure I've probably seen nicer ones of those. I just haven't been pulling them unless they're really nice and red. So anyway, this 1991 was a slight upgrade, so we are going to go ahead and pull that one. And this 1984 Philly was also a little bit of an upgrade. And it was this one right here. At least I hope it was, because both were pretty close. One had less carbon on it than the other. So anyway, there we have it. There's our books. And I did check that professional life, and honestly, it's about the same. So I'm not going to be replacing that one. So those are the 2 books that we had a little couple of upgrades in. I am not going to go through all of my finds from the previous sections of this video. Feel free to go back through and find those sections because I do a recap of each coin and the value throughout. And if I said I was going to do a value at the end, I'll plug it in back into the middle of the video by throwing up eBay comps and stuff like that. But this is a lot of fun. If you're new to coin roll hunting, I strongly suggest you doing hunts like this. It's not expensive. This was $175 worth of coin. And at the end of the day, the major expense was the quarters and the dimes. But this is a nice long hunt. It gives you tons of different things to look for. And having a book like the Strike It Rich book is a great help because of the pictures and the detail and the values that it gives if you're interested in the numismatic value of coins. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, let me know. Drop on down below and leave me a like and leave me a comment while you're down there. I'd really, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, make sure you click on that subscribe button and then click that little bell and select all so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. If you're a channel member, I really, really appreciate you guys donating to the channel each and every month. I'll have you guys' names scrolling here on the screen. Thank you so much. If you're interested in learning more about the memberships, there is a link in the description below this video. One of the main perks is you get to see my videos before everybody else, and it helps support the channel. So with that, I hope you guys are doing well. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.